Hello and welcome to Impact Africa, our Bold Moves online talk show where we get to have conversations with diverse people and organizations who are impacting lives positively and communities as well. And this is your girl, Kemi Akiode Adebayo, also known as Mama K. And in today's program, somebody that will be sharing a story is a really committed and passionate social entrepreneur by the name of Johan de Meyer. He is the founder of the Macassar Pottery, which is based in Cape Town, South Africa. Welcome to Impact Africa, Johan. How are you?
Thank you, Mama K.
Yeah, and thank you
Very
for
well,
having us
thank
at
you.
your
Oh,
home,
it's
your
such a
beautiful
pleasure.
home. I love the fact that we're in your garden, and I love the green and everything. And this wonderful blanket. In fact, I want to hear the story of this blanket. Can you share the story before we even go into anything? Share the story of this wonderful blanket.
I don't know. For me, as an Afrikaner person,
Uh-huh.
the idea of knitted blankets, you always, if there's a baby in the family, there's a granny that knits little socks
Right.
and so on.
Okay.
And so that's been passed down in my wife's family. And
Wow.
although it's seen better days, it's one of those colorful things in the house that I just love.
And it brightens up probably the room in the house. But
Yeah.
I don't think it's in better days. It still looks, it looks South American or so, I mean the colors.
Yeah,
or the design.
Yeah,
rather.
it's somehow a grandmother knitted it, but
Uh-huh.
the designs remind me of South American designs. I don't know how or why.
Why or they go into.
But in South Africa, after apartheid, we discovered all kinds of interesting things of people that got married across all these lines and been hiding it all these years. So maybe in our family,
somebody somewhere.
there's somebody from Peru.
Now let's go to you, Johan. Who is Johan? Where were you born? What's your background in? What was life growing up for you? Married, family? Just share with us.
When people ask me a question like that,
Uh-huh.
unfortunately, I've gotten into the habit of redirecting the conversation immediately because, so it may sound a little bit airy-fairy and philosophy, but there's a reason behind it for me.
Right.
Is because people ask, "Who are you?" And then people tend to say, "Where I live, where I work, what my occupation is, am I married, do I have children?"
I didn't say that. Mine was totally different from
I
that
know.
way.
No, that's why I'm saying generally. Very.
I know.
Because I know you think differently.
Yeah.
But for me, that's why I redirect the question and I say I would rather explain who instead of who am I, to change the question to who am I with.
Okay.
In other words, where do I choose to show up?
Right.
Who do I choose as my friends? Where do I choose to live?
Okay.
Because those things for me are meaningful. So although I grew up in the 70s in Pretoria
Okay.
and went to school and high school and university there, I was at University in Stellenbosch studying journalism of all things.
Oh, you studied journalism. Oh, so I'm sure this must be interesting for you. Being on the other
Back
side.
to my roots.
What area of journalism were you specialized
And
in?
it was general.
Okay.
I was very fortunate to have a bursary from a leading newspaper in Johannesburg.
Right.
So the first four years of my career I spent there, and I ended up as the bureau chief of the kind of their branch in Mbombela today. Back then it was Nelspruit. Heading up the office there, and it was interesting days. It was 94. We had elections. It was the forming of the provincial legislatures and policies, and
must have been a tough time though at that time. Any journalist.
For any journalist, I think in particular for me, it was a challenge as a young journalist.
Okay.
To be because the ways were not set. So if even today, there's a way that Parliament works, and you kind of understand who fits in where and how to navigate the space. But back then, it was after a while. Actually, after a few years, the Premier told me that they thought I was a secret National Party agent, and I thought, but I was trying so hard not to present myself, especially as aligned with the National Party, but there's just so many assumptions and so many underlying currents that it was quite difficult, I think, as a journalist to define an identity in that time. But yeah.
So how did you end up in Cape Town? Was it to study, or because you said you went to Stellenbosch?
Yeah, I studied.
Or something else brought you to Cape Town from Pretoria?
The interesting thing is at the department in Stellenbosch, at the end of the year, there's a range of exams, but 50% of your mark is a thesis.
Right. And
the thesis is in the form, well, back then it was in the form of 5 articles that must be publishable.
Okay.
And in June of that year, I attended kind of a church missions conference.
Right.
And I ended up in a group working at a children's home in central Johannesburg, which until today I have a love affair with central Joburg. As ugly and dirty as it can be, if I get there, all my fields go up.
Oh my word, that's awesome.
But anyway, I met a lady that was involved in a children's home in Cape Town.
Okay.
And then towards the second half of that year, she invited me to take their boys on a camp because the children's home was closing down, and it would be the final group of boys, and they wanted to take them out. And it's very strange, but one thing led to another, and one of the volunteers at the children's home had connections.
Right.
So I decided to do my end of year thesis on gangsterism in Cape Town.
Ah, okay.
So picture this white guy in a white car nonetheless, driving through Manenberg, looking for the gangsters so I can talk to them.
Not a good idea.
I spent days.
No. Nobody would talk to you.
I spent days.
I don't think you're lost.
Literally waiting on street corners.
I can imagine.
Waiting for somebody to ask me
what are you doing?
What are you doing here?
But nobody asked.
Nobody did. And eventually, through the children's home, this guy put me on the back of his motorbike, and we literally drove to the headquarters of Rashid Staghi.
Right.
In Salt River.
Okay.
And which was very interesting because obviously I did my thesis, I spoke to him. It was a very strange experience because we did a 2-hour discussion. And then he said, by the way, do you realize what's behind me?
Oh.
And he opened the door, and there was a toilet, floor to ceiling with AK-47s.
But in the toilet.
In the toilet. And 3 months later, his brother was assassinated. And then I used the experience and had a big splash in the newspaper in Joburg.
Right.
Yeah, it's kind of what those bittersweet experiences of a journalist, because you got to be in a really dangerous situation and meet these interesting people and ask questions. But you kind of need to split your personality and your humanity because you see the trauma and you see the difficulty that communities are in, and you need to detach yourself to be able to present the public with a view of that. And I think what transitioned me to Cape Town, it took many years, which will be very boring now to describe how it happened. But that was the transition, that I reached a point where I said, I can no longer be attempt or try to be an objective eye. I cannot say that apartheid happened and I need to report on it from a distance and, kind of philosophize who's guilty, who's not guilty. I had to, come to terms with the fact that my family for generations was complicit. I was complicit. I experienced things as a child that I could not deny that I was directly complicit. That there were things that happened in apartheid that me and my family were complicit in. And I had to make a choice. You know, do I go live in a suburb and isolate myself? And because even today, I mean, you can live in Cape Town and not see poverty.
True, very true, very, very true.
And
very true.
And I had to make a decision that, you know, either I must go isolate myself a little bit more, or a friend of mine helped me to. He kind of coined the phrase that one can move from being complicit in injustice to being complicit in peace building.
Okay.
So I would rather, that's where the question comes from, who am I with? Because I can choose where I live, I can choose how I live, I can choose where I work.
Correct.
And in the way that I do that, be complicit in building. I mean, I'm not going to fix anything in South Africa, but I can be a little part of a movement that just goes against the current and tries to move in a new direction.
Right. Wow. That's so deep for me, and it's interesting, you know, starting on that note. But let's go on, you know, to how did you now go from journalism to Macassar Pottery? You know, how did that happen? Being a social entrepreneur, how did you make that journey, and when and why?
Okay. What I described now was exactly that. I met a lady. She eventually moved to London, and I'm not even sure if she's alive anymore, because we both of us are not great at keeping in touch over long distances. But she had such an influence on my life. You know, truth be told, 2 hours of conversation with her drains you so much that you need to go take a nap, because she could keep 4 intellectual conversations going and jump in between them, and you need to sit there and remember all those conversations.
Was she an elderly lady?
Yeah, even then she lived in Wakkerstroom and was instrumental in a range of initiatives there. But she told me the story that because before she was an environmental activist, she founded a bus touring company.
Okay.
And there was an old gentleman that she used to visit in the Karoo. And one day she was kind of lamenting her situation to him, that, you know, it's getting boring. I want to, there's more for me. And she, you know, he was a real Afrikaner. He drank his klipdrif and Coke. And she says he took his Coke can. Now I must first finish this, because I need to slam it. And he said, that can is empty now. And when a can is empty, you throw it in the dustbin. You don't try to drink from it anymore.
Okay.
And it took me about 3 days, and I realized that as much as I appreciate and respect journalism, and as much as I see it as crucial to as a fourth pillar in a democracy, I had to decide, who am I going to be with? Where am I going to stake my claim? And because I think to be a really good journalism, it needs to be your life.
Yeah.
And journalism wasn't my life. So there were a few years in between, but then in the late 2000s, I went to work for a youth center in Gordons Bay.
Okay.
And that was kind of the start of saying, what could be helpful in difficult communities? How do we need to help? The center where I was, my wife and I were caregivers on site, so we lived on site, and then there would be a group of youngsters that finish school in townships that apply, and it's kind of a bridging process, and we try to find them jobs, etc., etc. And it was a very good learning experience. But for me, that was kind of the starting block to ask the questions, how do we start to redesign the puzzle? How do we start to put the building blocks together? Because at that stage, I met a lady called Charlene Swartz, who's at CSIR, and she published a brilliant study on young people in South Africa.
Okay.
And what the study found was that young people, that the pressure is so hard that the only way to survive is they kind of split their personalities. So when I'm at church, I follow the church rules because then I'm safe. But as soon as I leave that door, I'm on the street.
A different person.
And if I'm a girl and I'm on the street and I'm expected to engage in whatever behavior, I do that because that's how you survive.
You survive, yeah.
Then you get home, then you follow your mother's rules. Then you get school, then you get to the youth center and you follow the youth center rules. So I came away from that experience, the one kind of a value that I knew is that the only way that we're gonna even start to help young people is it needs to be cohesive. We need to find a way where earning money and learning and developing my life and all these things, I mean, it's a crazy, almost impossible thing to do, but we have to find a way to help them where they are, in a way that builds their lives and helps them grow, but also helps them to earn an income to put on the table.
Correct.
Yeah, so the last years until 2009 was spent at the youth center.
Okay.
And then towards the end of that, I had made friends with Trevor Sampson, the gospel singer, and he started a music studio in Macassar.
Oh, right, okay.
And through a long turn of events, somebody had given him some money to start a pottery studio.
Okay.
Because as things go, you know, you have tourists visiting South Africa, and then they read a story in the paper, and then they get all warm fuzzies and they want to help. So this particular person, I'm so grateful to her. She helped to fundraise because they had heard about the plight of a young man that was in prison and had to come out but had nowhere to go. And I mean, you and I know that's the plight of all the young men in the prison.
Yeah, sadly.
And it turns out he never even visited us.
Okay, really?
But that's, Trevor asked me, don't you want to just come pop in? And if it pushes your buttons, come pop in again and let's see where it takes you. And I'm not one for big life decisions. Life kind of happens, and in that case, life happened, and I'm still there today. And the irony is that I have a young man on an internship at the moment who just exited from prison, and in a way that brings us full circle, because the purpose that we were, that kind of ignited the process, and is now actually one of our he's brand new. He's only been there a month, but I really have high hopes for him.
Awesome.
Very proud of him.
And it's just interesting how young people like that can, you know, even though it's a month like you said, but really willing, and I'm sure it's because of the environment that he's in. I think we'll stop for a quick break just now, and we'll be right back, and we'll share some photos from Macassar Pottery and a few other, you know, for you to see.
My name is Johan de Meyer, and I'm from Macassar Pottery. The Pottery Studio started as a community project where we wanted to bring change to young people's lives in particular. In South Africa, about 50% of young people never finish school. And that's in particular where we want to use the business environment to upskill and employ and incubate these youngsters while making quality products for the local and international markets. When we started off, we focused on making musical instruments from clay. And we became quite well known for that. We turned it into a tourism experience, and people could come here and we teach them how to play drums on clay drums and play flutes. But then as time progressed, we were able to then access different kinds of markets, and we started making salt pots and cups and so on. The first milestones were 3 years ago. We had 2 massive orders in 1 year for a total of about 11,000 items of salt pots and conference gifts, and that kind of put us on a new level. We're an enterprise, but profit making and beautiful products is a tool to bring social transformation. In terms of our methodology, there's 2 sides of the coin that's important to us. The one side is building dignifying relationships. It's kind of the reconciliation side of the South African story, but parallel to that, we need to understand that productivity is a core aspect of human dignity. I discover my dignity as I'm able to care for myself and my family. And that's why the other side is important, the side of incubation and economic activity and so on. The best moments is when you see a young person that left school at maybe age 13 or 15, and one day they have an aha moment and they say, but I got my life back, and I'm taking those steps to self-sustain. And it takes a long time, and it takes a lot of hard work and effort, and sometimes they fall off and come back again. But that's what this really is about, is that the products represent the story of human growth and human activation in a sector of South Africa where it's really most needed. Before we can get somebody to express themselves creatively, they need to discover that they are creative. So there's a lot of exposure that needs to happen for somebody to have one aha moment upon another, and one day wake up, oh, I can draw a new product. And that takes time, and that's why we have a strong emphasis on skills development within the business over a very long time, so that within the business young people can kind of gravitate and discover all the things that they missed out on in their younger life. The CDI has been really a strategic part of our journey. I think Macassar Pottery came into its own more or less at the same time that the CDI was formed, roughly around 10 years ago. And the variety of workshops that they offer, we've attended, we've sent some staff members to attend them. But over the years, the CDI is always there to help channel opportunities. And often there's opportunities even from government, but it's out of our reach. The amount of logistics and paperwork needed to access that is just beyond us. And often we don't even know about the opportunity. So the CDI fit there into the gap to really bring those opportunities down to a grassroots level and make it accessible and easier to apply for. Next 20 has given us the opportunity to develop and launch a range of our own. We've been working on that for quite some time, trying to bring together design elements from Africa with design elements with a more international kind of a flavor, and bring them together so that they look great locally but also on an international stage. And we've spent some time refining those ideas over the last few months, and really excited to launch it. It's something that our employees and us and the community at large is very proud of, that we can represent our community on the other side of the fences and the boundaries in South Africa with these really beautiful quality products.
So Macassar Pottery is doing a lot, obviously, and you're based in a place called Macassar. What's the history of the name? Is that something that was decided because of the area, or I don't know?
You know, I always tend to think in terms of big pictures. And so the answer to your question in terms of the big picture is the decolonization process happening at our universities. That's so important because, I mean, Macassar. It's not an indigenous name. It's not a Xhosa name. You know, so. And there's so many instances like that in Cape Town, but that history has been suppressed.
Yeah.
And for me, the history of Macassar is, in a way, for me, it's like a founding story. It's something that I go back to time and again. In short, the story is that there was a ruler, a king or a prince in a place called Macassar in Indonesia. You can go fly there today. It's a big thriving city with an airport.
All the way in Indonesia.
Yeah.
Okay.
And but when the Dutch colonizers arrived, you know, their strategy was to banish the king. And then it's so similar to the apartheid strategy. You banish the king, and you pay somebody that will dance to your tune, and you put them in their place. So because this king called Sheikh Yusuf was an activist, he incited rebellion, you know, against this occupation. He was banished to Sri Lanka, which was Ceylon at the time. They were scared that he would do the same with the slaves there. He was banished to Cape Town. And again, they were scared that he would do the same with the slaves, and they banished him to Macassar. So if you think in terms of Cape Town 300-400 years ago, the area that's the Cape Flats today is really a floodplain. So it was a very convenient banishment because for a large part of the year he was unreachable because it was a marshland, it was wet, it was winter. But what happened subsequently, he's considered the father of Islam, which I deeply respect. But what I respect, I don't want to say I respect it more, but the thing that captures me there is that in the community that he then founded, because it was him and his wives and children and so on, and so it was a whole party. They had a choice to go in so many different directions. But the choice they made was, this is where we are now. This is what life has dealt us. But the one choice we have is, in this place, everybody will be welcome.
Wow, that's awesome.
So although it was faith-based, I mean, he is considered the father of Islam, but there was a small community that assembled. So even a runaway slave or a Dutch farmer that was fed up with the system and wanted to just get away from it all somewhere, there was this place of safety for everybody. And unfortunately, he only lived for about another 4 years, and then that community migrated along the coast. But for me, in the midst of that, the extremes of colonialism and the brutalism of that, I mean, it's easy to read up on that. In the brutalism of that, there was this place where everybody was welcome because you're human. Whether you were indigenous or slave or whatever, you could be welcome there. And it's a story similar to the one of Nelson Mandela in the prison, where in the prison, you know, people started helping each other, getting literate, getting degrees and so on. But this story, because it's so ancient, for me it carries a part of our human DNA, that at heart all of us want to connect. At heart all of us want to be family together, regardless of the labels of religious labels or political labels, etc., etc. And if somehow we can make a contribution to remind, it's like we need to remind humanity that we are humanity after all. And because it feels like we've forgotten that. We've forgotten that the person that we hate so much is a human being, and they need help, or they need connection. And so it's easy for city councils to make rules and say, no, report the homeless when they come to you. Until you go and you know, look in the eyes of the person, and you see, but this person had a job before COVID. They had a home before COVID. They're not on the street because they are I hate the word vagrants. Who decided that somebody on the street is a vagrant?
I know that for me, there's even another word that I know is used normally, but I wouldn't even go there. That I really detest. Let me go now back to Macassar. So, what do you guys do? What do you actually do?
Okay. But there's two sides to the coin, and for me as a social enterprise, there's these two things that are in tension.
Yes.
There's a social impact component, and there's an enterprise component. And at the moment, we were very, very fortunate to receive funding from the IDC.
Okay.
That is helping us to scale our operations.
Awesome.
But that means that we are in a process of figuring out that tension between social impact and profit.
Right.
Because the usual model is that you have a business with an owner that has a good heart and wants to help. Then he starts a non-profit and he gives of his profit to the non-profit, and they support a soup kitchen or a creche or whatever. And I don't think that model is helpful at all. So, especially not with young people. We need to merge the two so that while I'm working on the job, I'm working with a power partner that's teaching me this job. Because dignity is linked to productivity. It's big words, but the point is, how can I feel that I'm a dignified human being, but I'm not able to put food on the table for my children?
Yeah.
It's impossible. So if we are going to build a normal society, productivity and job creation, it's like these, it's become buzzwords, but it means more than that. So as a enterprise, we are a township-based center for ceramic design and production.
Right.
We do a lot of what we call white label production,
which
means Woolworths would offer us a product that we then cost on and we manufacture under their name.
Awesome.
It's their name at the bottom, not ours. But then
they outsource it basically.
Yeah. So, but also we have our own ranges and we produce for smaller online stores and so on. So on the enterprise, there's a growing just factory. But then on the social side, we have a range of psychosocial support measures for the young people that we work with, because as a social enterprise, we upskill, employ, and incubate youth with a focus on youth that never finish school.
Okay.
So now you can see that it's a very particular kind of a factory that you must build, where you have senior people because you need to get the job done.
Yep.
But the only way this youngster is going to learn something, because he may be 23 or 26, he's never going to go back to school.
No.
The only way he's going to learn something is if you have a skill and I stand next to you and I watch you and I copy you and I start to learn.
On the job training.
On the job training
and skill,
which is difficult sometimes for people to understand, because they say, but they're getting a salary, they're getting paid. So where's your social impact? But what they forget is the 3 years of payment where they are not productive yet. Because if you haven't completed school, in those last 3, 4, 5 years of schooling, there's so many building blocks that are instilled in a person of how to be disciplined. How do I learn? How do I self-develop? How do I self-start? How do I not get stuck in negative behaviors or emotions that normal kids learn in that time? So if you've never been to school, well, then there's a gap. And something that for me is very important to say, that gap is not the fault of the young person.
No, I agree.
And I pause there specifically because we are so quick to say it's a vagrant. It's a vagrant. No. A child that is pushed out from school for violent behavior when he's 10, how can you label that 10-year-old as a criminal, as a violent, destructive human being. It means we have failed them.
Yeah, we've already condemned them.
We
they
condemn
have no
them,
future.
and unless we take responsibility and do something intentional, I'm coming back to my question, until we decide to be with them, they will not be able to move on.
True, true. Now, let me go on to, wow, there's so much I really want to ask you, and I know, we were going to go way over the time, but still, I need to continue to do this, and I'm being told, time, but it's okay. We'll keep going. So, can you share with us any tips or key life lessons or key steps to how to become an entrepreneur, social entrepreneur? Just quickly.
Over the years in Macassar, I've developed kind of 4 steps.
Okay.
Now, they're not really steps, but it's like principles.
Okay.
The first one is relate.
Right.
So I get to choose who I relate, who I build relationships with. But if I have the mindset of an entrepreneur, then the question is, how do I turn this relationship into an ideation process?
Okay.
So from relate to ideate. So now that I'm friends with Mama Kay, is there scope for a product that can solve a social problem? The third step is incubate. How do we take this township-based product or service outside the township to market it, so that we can break the barriers between these white and black and colored, and this one is divided from that one with a railway line, etc. How can we, instead of extracting value, how can we build value in the township? Whether it's a tourism product or whatever other, out of these relationships, which products can we build so that we make these marginalized communities places worth visiting, because they're filled with innovative people with ideas of how to solve local problems. But very importantly, my fourth step is integrate.
Okay.
So we relate so that we can ideate, so that we can incubate. And the last step is integrate. How do we use these products and services to bring new people around the table? So in our case, we have been supplying Woolworths with products, but it means you have this guy that left school at 13, that when Woolworths comes to visit our factory, he sits across the table from a product developer with a degree and so many years of experience as an equal.
Yep.
So that we can recognize that there's an asset base in vulnerable communities. Here in Elsie's River, where I live, the same story. We have to reverse the way that we think about these communities.
Mindset, mindset changes. Wow, okay. We'll have a quick stop and we'll be right back. What kind of challenges, because I'm sure, as a social entrepreneur, you've had a few challenges. Is it a long one? Because now I'm being told I don't have much time. So what kind of challenges have you had to face, and how have you managed to overcome them?
I think the brutally honest personal answer is loneliness.
Okay. I heard that from another young person. Okay.
Because there really are a lot of South Africans wanting to do good. But unfortunately, because the problem is so big, it's going to take a level of sacrifice.
Yeah.
And although I can give you a long list of totally amazing people that have supported me over the years, and they are still supporting me, and I'm so grateful for that, I can give you an equally long list of people who promised to assist or
Didn't deliver.
help. Because it took me from the time that we founded the ceramic studio.
What year was that? I don't think I
2010.
got 2010. Okay.
So remember, it was a small start. I'm not a ceramicist by trade. I just taught myself. But so there was an initial. I appreciate the fact that what we built was really from the ground up, and we did get a lot of support in the early days, and there were partners along the way. But sometimes there's such a big difference that the right person at the right time can make. And I've met so many social entrepreneurs over the years, and the way that organizations try to address the loneliness is they say, let's make a forum that meets once a month. But from my perspective, that's yet another responsibility that I must stick to and keep.
Yeah.
And I don't have a solution for that, but there is a degree of loneliness that I'm faced with the fullness of the South African situation every day, and it weighs you down. It makes you tired, and there's very few people that really understand that. So yes, I can talk about the challenges that it takes a young person longer to catch up than I thought in the beginning. You hope they will learn that skill over 3 months. It takes them 3 years. The breakages, the wastage you have, and so on. But it's really hard when there's people within reach that with the right recommendation, they could really open a door that could have a domino effect.
Yeah.
And to reach the right person is incredibly difficult. And I mean, sometimes I'm not blaming anybody. The situation is what it is. But it does make it very difficult. And the economic kind of model that we work with is extractive. So we think that if somebody announces we're going to build this big shopping center in a township, the people in the township are happy that they're going to get cheap products. What they forget is they're also going to get minimum wage jobs.
And some businesses as well will close down.
Yeah.
Some smaller businesses that are providing
and the
similar
profit
service.
The profit pays a 500 million rand bonus to the CEO, but there's nothing happening on the ground.
We don't even want to go to that one.
And you're faced with that every day.
Yeah, no, that one is deep. That one is deep. So, in terms of your personal quality that's helped you, up till now, can you share with us something that's helped you to...
My personal quality is called Mimi.
What's that? Mimi. What's that?
My wife.
Mimi, your wife. Okay. I like that. I'm glad I asked that question. Wow. Okay.
Honestly.
That's deep. Okay.
Honestly. And you can see she's not sitting here, so I'm not playing to her. But to have somebody that can support you when you are that down. And when you're really struggling, because she also knows the neighbors in close proximity that struggle. And she knows I'm faced with that every day. And as a social entrepreneur, you're the last one to be paid.
Yeah.
I mean, any entrepreneur, but as a social entrepreneur, even more so.
Yeah.
And to carry the burden of that and the burden of the household, and to have a sympathetic heart towards that, it's 98, 99, most of the reason of why I'm still alive is because I have that safe space and that haven of a home that I can come to where there's somebody that understands why
What
I've
you
chosen
do.
to do this, and that's in it with me and playing a part and gets angry with me at the injustice of the whole situation.
That's so important.
The second thing is we have a group. It kind of started off as a church group, but it's become more of a group of friends that meet every 2 weeks, and it's a group that kind of looks in the same direction. Many of us have adopted, so it's a support group. Many of us are asking deep questions about society and the church and the issues that we face and poverty and all of that. So that's the one safe space where I know I can feel as bad as I could ever feel.
Without being judged.
But I can go there and I will not be judged. And if I need to sit in the corner and be quiet for the entire meeting, I'm loved and accepted. And I think these two things, a really supportive partner at home and a really supportive small group. We're only about 20 people when we all meet.
That's a big group.
Yeah, but it's including lots of children.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So it's been a challenge now with COVID to meet, but even, I mean, we've been going for like 13 years now.
Wow.
Of meeting every week for supper.
Wow.
And you know,
that's awesome.
We've worked through it all. We've discussed it all. We've had the hard conversations. And I'm thinking of one of my friends who attends that group. Once mentioned the phrase of Eugene Peterson, the American pastor. And I can't remember what the book says. I'm very bad at remembering what books say.
Join me, I'm the same.
But the phrase was a long obedience in the same direction. To make your mark and say, this is the thing that I want to shift. And whether it shifts or not is not the point.
No.
I'm going to be obedient to my decision and keep walking in the same direction. Making changes here and there, finding partners here and there, and keep on.
Wow. I'm going to end with this question now, and I'm hoping it won't go way over because I'm being told we've run out of time, but no, I'm going to keep going. Because this is important for me as well. And in terms of what you do, and you've touched on the area as well, you know, that you live in and working and things like that. Rather than focus on the challenges, you know, that we are all aware of that exist in our townships and you know, disadvantaged areas, from high unemployment to poverty to racism to gender-based violence to crime, gangsterism we've spoken about. Can you share any kind of solutions? You know, because I'm always about what's the solution? Because we can talk about problems till kingdom come. I know you're ready. Your project and your social enterprise is one of the solutions, you know, to, you know, what we're talking about, because you're working with young people who've been abandoned or served time, you know, and things like that. So, but in a bigger scope for South Africa or even Africa as a nation, because the problem cuts across most of the African countries, and we keep talking about it, and we have so much resources and so much talent, what you're talking about. What do you think are any other solutions, even if it's one that you want to share, even if it's not possible? I don't know. I'm just thinking now, you know, outside or even throwing the box away, you know, what kind of solutions, you know, can we work on?
I would go back to when I sidestep your question right in the beginning.
It's okay.
Decide who you want to be with.
Okay.
And make peace with that. I've had friends who move into white complexes and face racism because they decided to be with those people, but the white residents never decided to be with the black, with them. So, to make it simple, my message is I truly believe that most South Africans already have the value set that is the solution to the problem. Except we're not doing it. Make peace with the fact that if this country is going to work, it's going to take sacrifice. For some it will be a big sacrifice, for some it will be a small sacrifice. But it's not the kind of, what I'm talking about is not the kind of sacrifice where you give food to the person at the gate that says he's hungry. It's the kind of sacrifice where I deeply think, am I solving the solution by living where I live? By working where I work, by shopping where I shop, by having my leisure time where I'm having my leisure time. Who do I want to be with? Do I really want to be part of a diverse South Africa? Because then I must want to be with diverse people. The LGBTQ community, other Africans from the rest of Africa, our own diverse South Africans. Do I really want to be with them? Because it's going to take a sacrifice. And in a way I want to take it back to faith. My two of my favorite verses from the Bible is the one where Jesus said, if you want to follow me, sell everything you have. Give it to the poor and come and follow me. Because what he was saying is that when we start thinking in that direction, we are putting humanity first and not ideology.
Yeah.
Because if I sell my possessions and give it to the poor, it means I'm dependent on the poor to help keep me alive then.
Yeah.
And the other one is, blessed are the peacemakers, because they will be. So you know that somebody is a spiritual person by the action of peacemaking. And in South Africa today, how do we make peace? We make peace by driving to difficult areas in our cities and making friends there and making sure that if I have somebody, for a short time we had somebody helping us clean our house, and I gave her the shock of her life because I asked her, you clean our house, can we come clean your house one weekend? And she was so shocked.
Yeah, because I'm sure nobody has ever said that. Yeah.
You know, and a while after that, she stopped coming.
She was probably scared. Why do you want to come and help me clean?
Yeah, but I mean, there are things.
Yeah, we need to change our mindset.
If I give you a gift, your inclination will be to give me a gift back. But somehow we're not doing it in society. So it's that question. Who do I want to be with?
Yeah.
And if I want to be in a South Africa where my children will not be in a civil war at some stage, then what difficult decisions do I need to make now? Maybe I need to move into a place like Elsie's River where I live. I love where I live. I don't know if it caught on the audio, but the children playing in the street a little while back. These children are growing up knowing that for Congolese kids and colored kids and white
It's
people
safe for them to come out
and all these religions.
Yeah.
I mean, we represent something like, between denominations and religions,
Wow.
there's about 6 of us just in the single street that we live in. Which means these kids grow up in a place where difference is normal and difference is an asset. So I know, if never ask me for a short answer. The short answer that I would leave the viewers with,
in closing, is any
really,
tips you want to give them?
It's really that. Decide You know, make your mark. What kind of a society do you want to live in?
Yeah.
And do you want to be with those people? And here's the trick. It's the people with the privilege that need to make the first move. So if you are a person of privilege and you want to live in a peaceful South Africa, understand that you are the one with the car and the petrol to drive to Kailicha and go have coffee at Siki's coffee place in close to Lookout Hill.
Yeah.
I have so many friends with the most amazing tourism experiences. It's the ones with the cars and the petrol that have the ability to travel there. So decide who you want to be with and then pay the price and make it happen. But the time to sit back and wait for politicians and somebody else and another leader, that time has long passed. They've shown us again and again, you know, there's no quick solutions there. So it's up to me to acknowledge that, sometimes it for me it's like cold water in the face almost. And I know it's COVID, so forgive me, but when I was 18 years old, this was such an offense that it was almost illegal.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And that is not very long ago.
Yeah.
That was 1989.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just this.
Yeah. Whew.
And if we want to build that kind of society, we need to set our minds to it and obediently stick to our guns for a long obedience.
Wow. Okay. I could go on, me and you, and I know there's still so much I want to ask and so on. But what I will ask is maybe at a future date we can come to Macassar Pottery, to come and see what you guys are about and continue some of these conversations and speak to a few of your young people, the young men that are there.
I don't believe that there's final answers, so everything is a work in progress.
Oh yeah, big time.
But
big time.
You're more than welcome to come see our work in progress.
Thank you, and just to say well done, and thank you for all you're doing, and thank you for giving of yourself, to communities, to do this, and because sometimes we think, am I making a difference? Am I really, really, helping? But what you've been saying, many, many times without stopping that I'm hearing is, who do I want to be? Who do I, because I think that's really important, because sometimes we feel we want to save the world and we started with that at the beginning, save everybody, but sometimes it's not feasible, but then you're in your corner doing what you want to be and who you're staying with, who you want to be the community, be it with work. So thank you and well done, for all you're doing. And I'm sure you're impacting lives in more ways, than you know. And it's a pity the house help, that you had ran away and didn't take that offer.
Yeah, but
I think that was a missed opportunity.
Because
I've never thought of that, but now you're thinking, you got me now thinking, because it's true.
But
why one day can I come and
that actually led to a big decision for us as a family. Because it's only in South Africa that you have people cleaning your house. Why? Now I know it's. I'm not belittling it.
It's common in West Africa.
Because that's interesting to know.
It's common.
But this culture of I need to live at a certain status so that somebody else cleans my house, and I think it's another long conversation. But
I can see even I want to get into it, but we'll probably.
The point is, it's my house.
I
clean
see
my
what
mess.
You're saying. Yeah. No, I see what you're saying. But
and for us, not necessarily for other people, but for us, that was kind of a turning point.
Yeah.
To say, given where we live and what we're trying to do, you clean behind yourself.
Wow. Wow.
I'm sure that's the funniest last words you ever heard from a guest. You clean behind yourself. So don't worry, I'll clean behind you when you go now.
I knew this was going to be a very interesting one, and I was prepared and ready for learning, unlearning, and relearning, as we go. So thank you for the wonderful time and allowing us as well to come to your space. And I want to just say thank you as well to Mimi, because, that is a backbone that is needed. Sometimes, people don't get it, but if you don't have one or two, and the support network that you spoke about, the group of friends of 20, including children that have been meeting for 13 years. Wow. I wish I could be part of a group. I tried setting up one, but it didn't work. Everybody just got busy. But saying that, I always say everything is about a season, Maybe it was not the right season.
It took lots of hard,
probably.
Yeah, when you don't want to go, you have to go.
Yeah, it's commitment.
And now we're picking the fruits of that.
It's commitment. No, but it's a good thing, because you need a good support system, especially with what COVID has showed all of us. You really need that, be it community, friends, church, mosque, if you're Muslim, and things like that. So yeah, that is needed. And I love your 4 principles: relate, ideate, incubate, and integrate. And I could go on. There's just so much that I could go on from, here. Make your mark, sacrifice, is needed. Putting humanity first. Deciding who you want to be with and having peace.
You're the first person that ever interviews me that made notes.
I always make notes because I don't trust myself in remembering. I'm getting to that age, I forget things. So I always go back to my notes, even because it's not just about just interviewing. It's a learning experience as well for me. And I've been enjoying it, and that's why I make notes, so that I can go back, as well, to read. And that allows me, when I see you next, I'm like, oh, I'll look at you in a different light. Not that I don't know, but you've opened yourself, you've shared your story. Some I knew, most I didn't know, so for me, thank you. And there's just so much, here. And I just want to close. I know it's been a long one, but remember, this is about celebrating people who are impacting lives positively in their communities, and for them to share their stories with all of us, because sometimes we don't see them, especially those working in the grassroots who are doing wonderful and amazing things. But like you heard Johan say, the loneliness as well sometimes, it's not easy, for them. And what I'm, appealing, we're going to share the details of Macassar Pottery. If there are ways to support in any way, because I'm sure there are always many ways, not just money. A lot of people think, money is good, but a lot of people think it's only about money. But there are ways, to support in different ways. You can always reach out to Johan and his team, and we will share the details, at the end. And like he said, who do I want to be with? I just love that phrase. Now I'll start looking at that phrase in a different way. And, I need to decide, each time, who do I want to be with? So you heard him, sacrifice, put humanity first. It's been a wonderful, and thank God, I was prepared in a way, because I actually didn't know he had journalism background. So how did I do, by the way?
You're the
Apart
best.
from me writing down.
You're the best.
I'm the best.
Good journalists make good notes.
Okay, good. Because I didn't study for it. I'm always self-taught, with things. And it's a passion of mine. So thank you all. Until next time, when we have more conversations with more diverse people who are impacting lives. And as we celebrate the month of Tata Mandela's birth, who, stood for humanity, serving humanity. These are some of the people we're showcasing who are doing, they might not be known, or they might be known, These are some of the people we're showcasing who are doing grassroots work, serving humanity the best way they know. Remember, God is love. Till next time, this is Mama K. Love you all. God bless.